Today we are in San Diego's historic Old Town district, and we're going to be reviewing the TT Artisan's 35mm f1.4. This is going to be a fun review. Just a couple of things to note as we get into the review. Number one, TT Artisans did send me this lens to review, though they are not paying me for the review and they're not going to be getting final approval before the review goes out. Number two, this is a crop censored lens, so it's a 35mm full frame equivalent, which on a crop censored body is about 56mm. So we can consider this lens a standard zoom. On a full frame camera though, if you didn't crop in, you wouldn't be able to fully cover the sensor with the imaging circle, so that's why you crop in. And I'm going to be shooting on the Canon R5, but I'm going to be shooting in crop mode, though you could shoot in full frame mode and then crop later to gain additional resolution. I want to get a perspective of how this lens would really operate on an actual crop sensor body, and on the R5 we get between 16 and 18 megapixel. And my intent with this review is to cover both the build quality, the image quality, and the general use, and then I'll give you my conclusion about who I think this lens might be for. And I'm gonna go find my first subjects. Even though this is a super budget lens in this category, I still want to run down all the specifics as it relates to image quality. So we're going to start by talking about barrel distortion. So when photographing anything with horizontal or vertical lines, I'm not really seeing any distortion in the center. Basically, straight lines are straight, which is pretty much what you'd expect at this focal length. So distortion is pretty well managed in this lens. Next is aberration, and aberration can significantly impact your image quality, but it's something that isn't normally well controlled in lenses in this price point. More expensive lenses are going to come with additional coatings and engineered elements to reduce things like chromatic aberration with those purple and green fringes around your highlighted areas. Lateral aberration has been minimal and is traditionally leaned into the kind of purple fringy area, especially when shooting against bright backgrounds. So in Lightroom, in most cases, I can get rid of almost all of that aberration and it doesn't significantly impact the quality of the image. It still remains sharp. So overall, aberration is present, but minimal and easy to control in post. But honestly, that brings me to one of the more important things, which is sharpness. That's actually been something that on this lens I have been pleasantly surprised. For a lens in this category, even wide open at 1.4, it is surprisingly sharp. And if you stop down just a little bit, it actually gets considerably sharper. And in my experience, when even pixel peeping rather closely, these images are really sharp and they're really good on the contrast. Color reproduction has been good. Honestly, all around, when looking tight into these images, they look really nice. Now, obviously at f1.4, the whole image is going to be just a little bit soft, although I've noticed that sharpness is generally even across the frame. When stopping down to 2.8, you get a considerable improvement in sharpness, although 1.4 is still very good, again, especially for a lens in this category. Once you step down to f4, you get a lot more sharpness, and I didn't really notice much difference between f4 or f8, but contrast and color reproduction, as well as sharpness, have been very good. So as far as color reproduction is concerned, because of the fact that there's minimal axial or lateral chromatic aberration and chroma is relatively well controlled in this lens, honestly, color reproduction is accurate, so no issues there. Now, one thing that can definitely impact the quality of your images when you're shooting full open is honestly the quality or the character of the out of focus elements, the bokeh balls that are produced by this lens. And again, I've been pleasantly surprised by the quality and the smoothness of them, especially in the center when shooting on axis. Now, obviously, when shooting slightly off axis, or when those bokeh balls are more towards the edge of the frame, they do turn a little bit more of a cat eye, but honestly, with a lens like this, that is to be expected. But in the center especially, they retain a nice round character and very little onion ringing. Again, they are very smooth. I was able to shoot 4K 120 on the R5 with this lens. Looked beautiful. So now I want to tell you a little bit about my experience actually handling and using this lens. And I'll put it as simply as possible because I don't think it needs to be overcomplicated. It has a focus ring, it has an aperture ring. The aperture ring is clicked, the focus ring is smooth, it works. It's a simple lens. And that's kind of the point, because it's simple, it's easy to use, and it feels well made. And again, for the price tier that this lens is in, I kind of think it's punching above its weight with its metal construction and quality feel. But that brings me to my last point, which is it worth the price, and who should buy it? We talk about lenses as tools, right? That's what cameras are. That's what our gear is. It's a tool to do a job, to create, to whatever it is that we're trying to do with our stuff, with our gear. That sounds exceptionally profound. But here's the deal. This is a tool, in my opinion, for having fun. This is a tool to spark creativity. And like most manual lenses, it's a tool to kind of force you to think about your process and your style, right? It forces you to pause, to wait, and to think about your composition, about your framing, about your subject in general, about your lighting and how it feels and whether or not it conveys the subject that you're looking for. And if you're the type of person who's looking for a lens that's fun and that isn't terribly expensive and that gives you quality optics at a really low price but forces you to do some extra work, then this is what you should be looking for, especially if you're shooting on a cropped body. They've got this out for pretty much every mount there is. I've got it on the RF mount, obviously, but you can find it for pretty much everything. And right now you can get it on sites like Amazon for like less than $100. I can solidly recommend this lens to anyone who is looking for something to have fun with. I wouldn't necessarily work with this. This is not a work product. I wouldn't show up at a client's shoot with this, although you could do portraits with this, I guess, but I wouldn't do that. But it's for fun, for getting the creative juices flowing. This will definitely do that. So if you're interested in that, if you're interested in this lens, I've got a link down below. That's an affiliate link, so that does go to help the channel. There's a bunch of other stuff down there that also helps the channel. As always, the best way, the easiest way to help and support me here is to go ahead and hit like and subscribe. That really does help to grow the channel here on YouTube. And I'll give you a couple of more photos from my experience with this lens. I've really had a fun time playing around with it for the last week or so. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.